I left Catalina somewhere around midday. It was hot, stiflingly hot in fact, but I only needed to drive as far as Pan-América, a mere 2.5 hours away. There I met up with my couchsurf host Carlos. I helped him out with some yard work he was working on and shared a tasty meal with him and his family. And then, bright and early in the morning, I headed off to Panama City in search of ferry tickets. The highway from Pan-América to Panama City was pretty uninspiring, and as I approached the city, traffic slowed to a crawl, and frequently came to a standstill. Crossing the impressively large Bridge of the Americas gave me a bit of vertigo. The approach is quite steep, and you have a good sense of how high you are. And somewhere around the apex of the bridge, the idea that I was actually crossing the Panama Canal sunk into my head. This thought left me reeling a bit, and before I could recover, I was smacked in the face by this incredibly surreal view. In front of me there was a towering city of glass and steel, so vastly different from anything else that I had seen on this trip that I felt like I had driven right into a futuristic science fiction movie. And now I slowed to a crawl, trying to take in everything I was seeing as the rest of the traffic sped by me. Well, after I arrived at the Ferry Express office, they told me I can't buy my ticket today because I need to fill out some paperwork at a government office that's not open today. And I can only do it on Monday or Tuesday because it's going to be closed for the rest of the next week. I also found out that the ferry is not going to be running anymore after April 24th, so I have no idea how I'm going to get the motorcycle back. With my hopes of obtaining my ferry ticket dashed, all I could do was drive to my host in Puerto Lindo, which is really not such a bad place to sit and wait for a government office to open. I arrived on Saturday night and then spent Sunday helping my host with a few odds and ends, and then Monday morning headed back to the city.
The time is 5:45 in the morning, and I'm off to Panama City in search of the papers that will let me take my motorcycle to Colombia.
Shortly after I left, I discovered a giant track hoe upside down in the middle of the road, and the small amount of attention that it seemed to be receiving from the locals led me to believe that this kind of thing might actually be normal. I hit the worst traffic of my life on the outskirts of the city, and by the time I got to the inspection yard, my clutch cable was all but destroyed. But, as luck would have it, there were 2 other KLRs in the inspection yard that morning, and one of them had a spare clutch cable he was willing to sell to me. And he basically installed it for me, too. Shortly thereafter, a Yankee on his way south pulled up on a Yamaha 250. Since neither of us had tickets, we both headed over to the Ferry Express office, where we could at least wait in an air-conditioned, if crowded, space. I bought my ticket, got some of my questions answered, spent some time translating for other foreigners to the best of my ability, and then headed back to get my paperwork. Alright, it's 1 o'clock, I've got my motorcycle inspected, bought my ferry ticket, and I'm just waiting on one last paper here at the DJ. It's hot today, I'm thirsty, I haven't had anything to eat. When I finally gave in, I'm back on my street food kick. Hopefully this stuff doesn't put me down right away. That guy just sold me the most delicious lemonade I've ever had in my entire life, so things are looking good. Chris and Evan, the other 2 KLR riders I met that morning, were actually trying to catch the ferry that same day. All the officials told them it was impossible, but they defiantly set out to prove them wrong. We're here inside the belly of the beast, trying to get our paperwork done. We got some fellow motorcycle riders with me.
Getting the ferry today.
Hopefully. They finished their paperwork with what I'm sure was blinding speed compared to anything else that was happening in that office. And then they disappeared in a hot cloud of dust heading towards Cologne. I really hope they made it. By the way, the Yankee also has a ride report. Link in the description for that. We received our last crucial piece of paper and drove back to the Ferry Express office, entering like conquering heroes. And it's hard to describe how good it felt sitting in that air-conditioned office knowing everything was in order. It's 4 o'clock! I have my ferry ticket! All the paperwork's taken apart! Taken apart? No, that doesn't make any sense. And all the paperwork... it's hard to do videos when you're tired. All the paperwork's taken care of. Now I just need to show up at the port, 8 o'clock next Monday. I parted ways with the Yankee and made speedy tracks back to Puerto Lindo through the ever-worsening traffic. I found the upside-down excavator exactly where I'd last seen it, and I felt a little bit silly for expecting it to have moved. Well, it's 7 o'clock. I made it home, just as the last bits of twilight are disappearing from the sky. I left before the sun came up and got home after the sun went down. Another very long day. After my long day, I had done everything I could to prepare for my ferry ride to Cartagena. So now it was time to focus on the task at hand, which was mostly finding the best way to relax in this warm tropical climate, but also included various construction odds and ends that needed doing on my host's half-finished hotel. I spent a little bit of time further honing my pizza making and pizza eating skills, and I spent quite a bit of time trying to befriend this very talkative but very shy parrot. I was hoping I could convince it to sit on my shoulder as I walked around town, but in the end a handshake was all I got. Which was really a shame, because I really could have used a parrot as I walked around the old fort of Portobello. The presence of so much large cannon and the thought of my upcoming sea voyage had put me in a thoroughly piratical mood. And this port is no stranger to pirates. Captain Henry Morgan once captured the town of Portobello, and Sir Francis Drake is rumored to be buried nearby in a lead coffin. And there was a good reason this place was such a pirate magnet, too. From here, the Spaniards shipped back to Spain literal tons of silver that they had extracted from South America. And since mind-boggling wealth is so often accompanied by mind-boggling firepower, the fort was equipped with some 20 or 30 7-inch guns strategically placed pointed out at the opening of the harbor. And as my thoughts turned to the harbor, I noticed something out there. There was what looked like a small front-loading ferry sitting between me and the open water, and I had to wonder if this was the San Blas ferry of Fritz the Cat fame. But whatever boat she was, I just hope that somebody picks up the slack where the larger ferry express ship leaves off. With plenty of nautical nonsense floating around in my head, I took a walk up to the top of the ancient castle that overlooks the deep natural harbor of Portobello. The town of Portobello itself was founded sometime in the late 1500s by the Spaniards, but the name Portobello was given to it much earlier than that, possibly even by Christopher Columbus. On the way back, I spotted one of the Pan-América bling buses parked on the side of the road. Here in Panama, the bling buses reached the pinnacle of their art form, relying much less on chrome and much more on highly skilled painting to draw attention. This bus is only a mediocre example compared to many of the others that I saw, but it was the only one holding still enough for me to get a good picture of it. The next day, my host sent me out to check on her boat and a small watercraft that she dubiously referred to as a kayak. These plastic boats have none of the grace or ease of handling of their namesake, but they are unsinkable, which is a nice feature. As I stepped aboard the good ship Orion, the thought crossed my head that I could simply abandon the motorcycle and take the boat instead. But as I looked around, it quickly became apparent that the poor boat had been neglected and was in no way seaworthy. Still, it did the pirate in me some good to stand on the deck and daydream a bit. I paddled up to what had looked like from a distance the perfect tropical beach, but when I arrived I found the shores completely covered in trash, and the thought went through my head that we humans are really good at messing up a good thing. And so, feeling slightly depressed, I let the wind push me back to Puerto Lindo to start packing the motorcycle for my next day's journey. And that brings us up to the present. I'd like to thank you all for your encouragement and support, and as usual, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. That's all for now, and I'll see you guys next time.